All right, hey guys. Let's see who all's in chat right now as we're getting set up. We got a couple people over on YouTube. Do you have anybody over on Twitch?
Yeah, we got a couple people over here.
Sweet. Starting to get started.
All right, hey guys. Let's see who all's in chat right now as we're getting set up. We got a couple people over on.
All right. I guess I'll forgo the Reddit post since most people on Reddit, they won't see this until like tomorrow anyways, and then we can post the log of this to YouTube as a separate video. All right. So hey guys, thanks for joining us. We're here to brew Ravnica Allegiance Commanders. We have just a cursory look. We just got I think the final one today. Was it Nikya or something like that? A final legendary. Nikya of the old ways. And I don't even know how they came up with that name. It's in Japanese, or is that Korean? So I don't know how they got Nikya. Maybe they heard somebody say it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, Wizards might, like, after they put it out in English, they might give a translation.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be really nice. We're gonna have to just go with what people assume the transliteration is. But we're going to try and brew each one of these and figure out what we want to actually play in our gameplay coming up. And we wanted to collaborate with each other a little bit on brewing, but we also wanted to collaborate with you guys to see what you guys wanted to see us play. So there's 7 of them, 7 legendaries coming out of Ravnica Allegiances, and we're going to go through each of them and talk about probably the coolest way to build that deck. So let's start with the first one, Judith the Scourge Diva.
Ah, yes. There's no cool way to build this.
What?
Generic.
What are you talking about?
No. I mean, there's options.
Adam, you want to read off what it does?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Judith. Other creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith deals 1 damage to any target.
Okay, so it's a Zulaport Cutthroat, right?
Yeah, except for you don't gain life off it, so it's not like prolonging the game at all.
What, was Zulaport there to gain life? I never really used Zulaport or Blood Artist to gain life.
I mean,
was
yeah,
that
that's not like the win con, obviously.
just casual.
I don't know what kind of deck you're brewing, but no, I mean, so when this first got revealed, okay, it's non-token. That's the biggest limiting factor here.
Yeah.
Right? And it is your creatures, so it's not as good as Blood Artist. But it's in your command zone, which means it's accessible at all times. So that's still worth building around, I would say. The first thing that came to mind is Phyrexian Altar and Gravecrawler. So Gravecrawler being a 1-mana creature that can be returned from graveyard to play if you control a zombie. And then Phyrexian Altar allowing you to sacrifice Gravecrawler to immediately generate a black mana. So those 2 cards are basically an infinite loop, assuming you have another zombie in play. So if you have those 2 cards in play and you play Judith, you can now sack and recur your Gravecrawler infinitely to deal infinite damage to kill everyone instantly.
Sure.
So I would think that that's the strongest way to build Judith, but there's probably some other better ones. Do you guys have any ideas of some other infinite sack loops like that?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wasn't going at it, oddly enough, from the infinite sack loops. I mean, yeah, that's a fairly straightforward one that makes a lot of sense. I mean, why not just do that? I mean, it's pretty disruptible, but so is anything. I went for a card that I keep trying to make work that I don't think ever will, and that's Champion of Stray Souls.
Why do you keep trying to brew that awful card?
I mean, you keep bringing things back, you keep sacking things, and you just like try and get value off of the ETB triggers and death triggers and etc.
Well, I need to look this card up again. Champion of Stray Souls.
Oh, it's just as good as you remember.
Well,
I remember trying to play it several times.
So let's review this card. It is a 6 mana, 4 colorless, double black, 4/4 that says you can pay 5 mana, 3 colorless and 2 black, and then tap it to sacrifice X.
It taps. It's not even a cyclical combo. It taps itself to do it.
Sacks X other creatures. Return X target creature cards from.
Wait. Actually, oh shit! It puts itself on top. I'm sorry. Continue.
So you
I was just
other creatures to return X creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. and then has a second ability that says 7 mana, put this card back on top of its library. Or, yeah, on top of your library from graveyard.
Yep. All right, so I got you. So let's assume that you have Dark Prophecy in play. Whenever a creature you control dies, you lose a life and draw a card.
Yeah.
So now with the 6 mana to cast Champion, the 7 mana to put it on top of your deck, and the 5 to activate, that's 6/11. That's 16 mana.
Wait, why are you paying the 7 to put it back on top?
You can infinitely loop Champion of Stray Souls.
Yeah.
Any number of things. Assuming you also had a Grievous in play to give it haste.
Yeah.
I think.
Wait, how are you putting it back on top? Like, why are you sacrificing it?
I mean, I guess because you can't untap it in Rakdos. Can you? I guess Thornbite Staff would work here, right?
Yeah.
If you put Thornbite Staff on this guy, then you don't need to.
Or Umbral Mantle or whatever, yeah.
And I guess.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably much better. I was thinking of a clever way to try and put him.
Yeah, so you could like Umbral Mantle and then like, what is it?
Use every one of his abilities and
Priest of Gix.
Yeah.
I think when it dies. No, when it enters the battlefield, it gives you 3 black mana. So if that's one of the ones that you bring back, then you can untap it with Umbral Mantle. And then there's another red priest that does the same thing, so you can bring that one back the next time, and then you should be able to chain that together. So a little bit more convoluted, but yeah, I mean, with Umbral Mantle, the 2 priests, there's Priest of Gix and Priest of something else in red. Then you should be able to at least untap it infinitely. You still got to pay for it, but look, it's not great.
Terrible.
Just saying.
So Pitiless Plunderer somewhere in here to generate mana every time you sack your guys, I assume.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, like you could. Well, you're gonna black market, right? Like black market good in this deck. I'm not saying that's
sure.
that.
Are we trying to combo on one turn? Or are we
no,
trying?
That's crazy.
Just generate value over many turns, because black market only nets you mana on your main phase 1 on each turn.
Point out, Shannon, you're talking to Johnny here. Of course, it's not coming out in 1 turn.
I must assemble all my many pieces.
Right. We got Ultra Shadows we're gonna put in there. All kinds of stuff.
Okay, so other ways to build Judith. I'm more leaning towards the spikier Gravecrawler Arena combo. You're going for just netting general value. So in that case, you're going to be building a deck that tries to damage everyone to death with her triggers.
Right.
So this is probably like a Havoc Festival, just group slug deck, where you're going to like eke out additional advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. Well, I mean, it's Rakdos, right? Like, what else do you do with the rest of the deck? Yeah, I mean, you either do that or you put in a whole bunch of, little tiny things like King Makar and garbage like that you're just, can get all these little tiny incremental value off of, like here's 2 damage here and 2 damage here and, put Mogus in. So, yeah, I mean, like somewhat group sluggy. I don't know if I go Havoc Festival, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely. Which
actually harkens back to what was the original one, Lyzoda, the Blood Witch, which I think had 2 activated abilities. Both I think sacked creatures. One did damage and one did something else. But I've seen decks that were built around it. They were very underwhelming, but they tried very, very hard. Activated a lot of time to try and do stuff. The Blood Witch. Let me look at her real quick.
Yeah, she's sacks a creature to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. If the sacrificed creature was red, you draw a card if it was black.
Okay, so 2 mana and sack a creature, deal 2.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of Timuret. Isn't that the other guy?
Yeah, the Murder King. What did I say?
King. Okay, I was looking at Lyzolda, the Blood Witch. Which, my God, these cards are almost identical. Jesus. Lyzolda and Timuret are almost the same exact card. Fucking wizards, come on, man. And then it's starting to sound like Judith is almost in the same vein as these.
I mean, at least Lyzolda draws cards, which isn't, like.
And then Timuret recurred things. Is Judith actually strictly worse than those 2 other commanders?
Yeah. I mean, it's got what? It's got Orcish Aura Flame attached to the front of it, and that's about it.
Okay, yeah, so other creatures you control gain +1/+0. So this strikes me as actually a go-wide commander, but then her second ability says non-token, which is actually a negative. So like this deck wants you to try and swarm people and use her as an anthem, but they can't be tokens. No, or else you don't get any advantage from her second ability.
Right. So I mean, the only other thing that I thought of that, like, I mean, I think that you're playing like a whole bunch of low to the ground stuff. Like it's not good, it's not great, but like you're playing a whole bunch of small things, and you're maybe getting back. I mean, you're gonna have to play it as Reanimator. So, you know, the Wake the Dead is in there, Living End, and you just Gary it home, right? Like every other black Reanimator deck.
The typical combo.
I have a feeling Gary's going to come up a lot tonight.
Yeah.
A lot. Because there's many Living Death-centric decks. Yeah, so I don't know about you guys. I think Judith isn't very good except for outside a very specific build. One, maybe.
I mean, the art's hot, but that's about it.
Man, the art is sick.
It is. It's great. I mean, it's super cool looking, and it's everything Rakdos is. If only they put words on this card that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think any deck that has Zilliport Cutthroat is a win con, maybe Blood Artist as well, but isn't token-centric, can in theory be converted into a Judith deck.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you guys think? As a Timmy, I'm not super excited about just trying to get that little combo together.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially in those colors, like the red is almost dead for the combo. Right, you're just depending on black combo pieces at that point.
I mean, like the red's in there to gamble. I mean, hey, as a spike, you're probably gonna like this. Your commander's 3. The other 2 combo pieces are 3 and 1 mana respectively. You could probably do this on turn 2 or turn 3 with a good hand.
This is more spiky, and it really rules out the fact that you had to get the Blood Artist or another way to actually deal the damage. So I don't think it's terrible from that standpoint, but
It's a hardcore win con in the command zone, so I think this is a spike. This is.
This could be a turn. What, a turn 3 win pretty easily?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can tutor the first couple turns for. I mean, you can unearth your Gravecrawler to the yard.
Yeah.
You can vampire
Entomb it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Entomb it.
Yeah, actually, the hardest part about that combo will be getting the other zombie. That will be the hardest thing for that combo to do, is to get a zombie in play so that your Gravecrawler can go infinite.
Right.
That's ironically going to be the most difficult part, and so you just got to find some really cool zombies that facilitate that.
Yeah.
That are cheap.
Yeah, but I mean, you can easily tutor up those pieces pretty quickly.
Yeah, I imagine you can run Dark Ritual on that deck, and on turn 1 actually set up a turn 2 win, assuming you can get a zombie into play.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on from Judith. What's the next one? Lavinia, Azorius Renegade.
Yeah.
All right, this one's pretty cool. Lavinia, Azorius Renegade.
Yeah, I hated this at first, but I think that there's some potential. I mean, it's an annoying deck. Like, any way you break this, the way that you build this deck is going to be super annoying for everybody to play against.
Either it's going to be annoying for people who play Busted Magic, or you're going to be an asshole. One of the two options.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, like, and the only way to make this effective is you being an ass.
Yeah. All right, so Lavinia Azorius Renegade is a 2-mana, 2/2. She costs Azorius colors. And she is a human soldier. She says each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with CMC greater than the number of lands that player controls. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. I love that the second part of this counters a spell instead of prevents them from casting it, so that you can let people screw up and then play, like, technically, that's countered. Put it in your graveyard. And being additionally like an asshole while playing this chick.
I mean, my first thoughts went to Omen Machine, because why not be the worst person ever?
Do you want?
Yeah, that one's interesting too. So no one can. So Omen Machine. Let's talk about that real quick. Do you have that one up, Omen?
Yeah, I got it. So Omen Machine says for 6 minutes, an artifact says players can't draw cards. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a land card, that player puts it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, that player casts it without paying its mana cost. So it forces every single cast to be for 0 mana.
Right. So it effectively counters everyone's
everything.
spell for the rest
And they
of the
can
game.
never draw a card
Or-
by any means ever again.
I'm sorry, an opponent's spells for the rest of the game.
Right. And
Your
so you
spells
just
can
cast
serve.
your deck very slowly.
Yeah. That is a hard line. So I guess what we're going to talk about up front, I was going to save this for last, but let's just talk about the lockout version of Lavinia, the dick one. So the concept behind this is you use things like Omen Machine, Knowledge Pool to make the spells they're casting cast for free. And but that's the only way they can cast spells is by casting them for free, which means Lavinia locks them out of the game permanently and they can't play any more spells. The Knowledge Pool being another card. When Knowledge Pool says that whenever they cast a spell, they exile it under Knowledge Pool, and then they pick a spell that's been exiled by Knowledge Pool and cast that for free. Of course, if they cast it for free, it immediately gets countered by Lavinia.
Right. And each card is about 50 cents. So, like...
Yeah, both of them are 6-mana artifacts, so this is not easy to pull off. And Azorius is not known for ramping either, so it's a little slow.
Yeah.
Which is probably why this won't be competitive tier. As fun as it is to sound about locking people out, trying to resolve 6-mana artifacts at a relevant rate with the commander on the battlefield it's going to be pretty hard to do. So
I mean, the one benefit the one benefit that you have is she does kind of prohibit certain types of ramp.
Yeah.
So like people just soul ring their way into something, or like, try to go for Tron lands or anything like that. They're not going to be able to play any non-creature spells. So it does help with that.
So let's talk about what Lavinia does that isn't cheesy shit. She prevents people from over-ramping, and she comes out on turn 2.
Let's
not over-ramping.
Yeah.
Only blocks non-green ramp for the most part.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, but it also blocks things like no, it doesn't. Never mind. I was going to say it blocks things like Zendikar's Resurgent and Mirari's Wake, but it doesn't technically block those as long as they keep casting spells less than the land count. So even though they can produce 12 mana from 6 lands, they can still just cast 2 6-drops without any problem.
Right.
Also to note, that only prevents non-creature spells, so they can still cast. They can use Mirari's Wake and Zendikar Resurgence to still cast an Eldrazi Titan.
Yep. So this does not stop Timmy's at all. Good to know.
Yep. So Lavinia, she does have that niche thing where she can synergize those 6-mana artifacts to lock people out of the game, but I don't think that is close to competitive tier. Those cards are bad in a vacuum. If Lavinia has somehow been removed from the game and is unplayable, those cards are terrible. Those Omen Machine and Knowledge Pool are terrible. Ironically, I had worked really hard on a Dovescape deck, and Dovescape would also fit into that archetype too, of just shutting people down. But there's a few other cards that you can run with Lavinia that I think are really cute. I have always been in love with the card Dream Halls. And let me read you guys what Dream Halls does. I know some of you all know. You're Dream Halls fans. Dream Halls is a 5-mana enchantment that says, rather than pay the mana cost for a spell, its controller may discard a card that shares a color with that spell. So it basically turns every single card in your deck into... It gives it the Force of Will's casting ability, where you said you exile another card of the same color to cast it for free. So I used to use this as a way to get Omniscience out a little earlier, but it's very risky because it's sort of like a world enchantment. Everyone can use Dream Halls to their advantage, whereas Lavinia prevents this from happening. So you can kind of use that as not a hard lock that locks them out of the game, but it does boost your deck, and it boosts it asymmetrically. Dream Halls are supposed to be a card that everyone could take advantage of because it's so strong, but Lavinia makes it so that only you can take advantage of Dream Halls. So I don't know if that would be worthwhile to try out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely goes in the deck because you're able to exploit something that they're not. But I don't know that it necessarily wins.
Yeah, that's tough. Because
what are you playing with Dream Halls that's gonna win? I guess is like, I mean, at that point, you can play, Omniscience for free, but then you're still, you still need a win con. You're still doing something.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and Azorius not so hot in that department, but you can start taking like infinite turns or something. I don't know.
As well as like we run into the same creature issue. If somebody's playing only creatures, they can just play all the creatures for free and not care.
It's true.
Yep. Yeah, it avoids the ramp problem.
Yeah, Lavinia like does this really great almost Gaddock Teague impression where it's like you start to read it and you're like, all right, 2 mana, 2/2. Yeah, it's like kind of oppressive, and then you realize that all of its abilities kind of don't really do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so yeah, I was fairly underwhelmed, but I mean, I think that's what you do. I think you actually build like almost either prisoner stacks deck where you just omen machine your way or knowledge pool your way to a win.
Yeah. I think this deck could be like Grand Arbiter. This could be a replacement for Grand Arbiter, Gust, and the fourth decks, but I think those prefer the mana discount more than the mana tax.
Sure.
But I think that you can build a stacks deck not necessarily around Lavinia. She's just at the head of it, and she provides a few stack effects. But you can build a solid deck, and you can forego the knowledge pool and the omen machine, and still build a solid deck. That's probably how I'd go about it. As a Timmy, I just want to play Dream Halls. So I am kind of interested in that aspect of Lavinia, but I just don't think she's going to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Wise. I mean, I was trying to think of like, what are cards that like never see play that could like get jammed into this? And there really isn't much. I mean, the other thing that I saw that people were doing with this, which honestly is probably just the way to go, but it's super painful, is just land destruction, just land hate.
Interesting.
That's definitely.
Right. Like they can't cast non-creature spells anymore if they don't have lands. Doesn't matter what else they have. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crappy. Like I said, I mean, I think that if you build a deck that's optimal around this, you end up getting hated. Like it's just not a fun deck.
So, like, the win con in that deck would be, like, some card that just gave infinite treasures to everyone. And you're like, hey, everyone have infinite treasures, and blow up all lands. The treasures don't do anything anymore. You can't cast things with it. Like, I'm trying to see how, like, you take advantage of, like, what cards would excel in that environment.
I think at that point, you basically just need to cast literally anything. Here, I'll cast a 3/3 and start killing you.
But they can cast a 3/3 too. I mean,
I think
they can still cast creatures.
Yeah, they can still. At that point, you just have to go mana rocks and just try and like hold a ramp strategy, but not allow your opponents to because they can't cast non-creature spells. But
right.
Yeah, this she's really good at hitting out rocks. I'll give her that. Yeah. That's it. That's basically all I want to talk about her. All right, let's move on to Lavinia from Lavinia. Next, let's talk about Nikya of the Old Ways.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Another super bland one. This is, I mean, when I was on Commander Cast last week, I was basically every card that we talked about, like, as far as mechanics, my overriding theme was just uninspired.
I would agree that all of the abilities you've seen here are just minor rehashings of previous ones.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're just
granted they seem to be mostly improvements over them, but as brewers in EDH, there was nothing that was like, well, there was one. There's one maybe that's like, whoa, boy.
Oh yeah.
But the rest of them just seem to be like, I feel like there were better versions of this card already.
Right.
So none of them are gonna like make huge waves, save for maybe a Simic one. All right, so Nikya of Old Ways. She's a 5-mana 5/5. She costs 3 in Gruul. She is a Centaur Druid. We think the only art for this card is in, I believe that's Japanese.
Yeah.
A Centaur Druid. She says you can't cast non-creature spells, period. Then she says, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So she is a living Mirari's Wake. That prevents you from casting spells.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Oh my
this is
gosh.
a real fatty deck.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
I am
I don't
really
know what to say.
interested to see somebody build Hydras in this deck, though. I don't know.
That's about it. Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of as a Timmy is just like, okay, well now I finally have a Hydra commander, but I mean Roshi and Meander kind of was in that spot already.
yeah.
I don't know if the downside of Nikya outweighs the upside of Nikya.
I think, I mean, so like focusing on the you can't play spells is a little meh, because I mean, think about it. Most of the stuff that we play is spell creatures anyway. So like you're gonna play Rexage and you're gonna play Green Warden and things like that that have a spell attached to them.
I definitely agree with Adam. I think green and red have enough utility creatures that it easily negates that downside.
Are you telling me you're going to be able to play Gruul without Decimate?
I mean,
I don't think you can do it.
Let's be clear here. Decimate's 4 mana. You cast that before you play her.
So you're telling me that your Gruul deck will probably have spells in it, right? It'll probably have spells.
Ramp spells, you know.
And you're just gonna probably time those spells around Nikya. You're probably gonna have 2 and 3 mana drop ramp or 2 and 3 mana ramp spells. You're probably gonna definitely have 3 mana ramp spells considering she costs 5. So you're probably gonna have Cultivate and Kodama's maybe Nissa's Pilgrimage in your deck, right?
Too,
yeah, Skyshock.
Well, I mean, again, you don't have to like you play Steve, and you play Wood Elves, and you play Llanowar Elves, and you play Birds, and you play.
There's definitely alternatives.
You know, I mean, you switch to the creature plan, same way you would with Rurik Thar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that begs the question, and I think that it is possible to build this deck with spells and just play around it, just like the same way that some people build Rurik Thar with spells and they just time it accordingly. This one obviously a little bit more prohibitive. I'm sure there are Rurik Thar players out there that dome themselves for 6 when the necessity arises, and this one says there's no chance for that to happen, but there's also, I've heard of people already get super hyped for their 60 creature Rurik Thar deck to have a new commander.
Right.
So they have literally 0 spells in their deck, which is totally possible too. It's just that I think when you go creature-centric, whenever you get a body associated with your spell is just already a little bit downgraded in power level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're saying there's nobody over in Twitch chat? There's a couple of people over here on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
I don't think the Twitch chat was working for whatever reason, so they're all over here.
I just think you have more of a following.
What's up, Devilman? All right. So, if you were to go creature-centric, though, then we get access to Panharmonicon, maybe? Maybe we're pushing the spell abilities a little harder, or the creature spells a little bit harder. Is that what we're thinking then?
Yeah, I mean, and you can almost go. I mean, what you have down is like bad Animar is kind of correct, because I was trying to think of like how many creatures are there that give you mana, and can you like keep bouncing those with like a Cloudstone Curio? You know what I mean? Like, is there a way to just leverage the mana over and over and over and over for some kind of trigger?
Wait, so you're talking about what? Putting multiple Nikya back into play multiple times via Cloudstone, or
no, not Nikya.
That doesn't really work.
But no. I mean, the only other thing I could think of is you can use a lot of the creatures that untap lands.
Okay. Yeah.
So you could do...
Unfortunately, there's only a couple of mono green ones. I think a lot of them end up being blue and shit like that.
Well, so you can use Argothian Elder and Maze of Ith and go infinite that way.
But that mana, as we found out many a times when you go infinite, that mana empties at the end of combat. So you have to be with infinite mana in your mana pool in the middle of your combat step. So you better have a fire breathing dragon.
You play Yeva.
You also can't cast.
So you play Yeva. Yeah, so you play Yeva, and then you play Craterhoof, and then you start.
So
doing
wait,
things.
I think you're onto an awful deck idea, and that is fire breathing tribal.
Oh, jeez.
You're basically we found ourselves a fire breathing commander. She is designed to
That's hilarious.
To actually so you want double strike in this deck. You want to make infinite mana in the combat step while swinging. That way, your trampling dragon just obliterates somebody for 1 million damage. Like, is that where we go with Nikya of the old ways?
This seems terrible.
I mean, it does. It does and it doesn't. I mean, how many times have we seen even without anything like that? Like Molten Dragon or Molten Steel Dragon do some work. So, having an infinite mana way of killing somebody with it is pretty sweet too.
I mean, that's fair.
I don't know.
There was definitely that game, I think it was last week, where I had to pay 18 life to kill somebody with the Molten Steel Dragon.
Hey man, that thing does work until you get mind controlled, and then somebody uses your Molten Steel Dragon to kill you.
There you go.
Rip. Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to talk about though is if you do end up going with I'm going to slide spells into Nikya, and I'm just going to try and play around the fact that when she comes down, I'm doubling my mana production but can't cast those spells anymore. You're going to want to use rummaging creatures. You're going to want to use
that's good.
rummage. If you end up going that way, you want to use rummaging goblin. These kinds of ways to loot those cards out of your hand so they can get extra value. Maybe they have if they have cycling, you'll be able to use cycling still because that is an ability, you're not casting a spell, you're using its ability. But you're going to want rummage effects in your deck to get rid of those spells, to get around Nikya. What do you do with all that infinite mana, though? You cast Eldrazi, so this is a bad Animar. This is a bad.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's uninspired. It's exactly what you said. It's a Mirori's Wake with a drawback. I mean,
yeah, it's in your command zone. This feels like this set was. Hey, you remember that really good card that you put in your decks? Now let's put it in your command zone. But there's some caveats.
Some pretty strong but downsides.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. I may try and work around that commander and play it in an upcoming gameplay episode, but I got to tell you, I'm not super excited. So, The next one up is really exciting, and that is Prime Speaker Vannifar. And I'm sure everyone's excited. This one's got my nips hard. So, Prime Speaker Vannifar is a 4-mana 2/4. She is 2 and Simic to cast. She is an elf ooze wizard. I'll let that sink in. Because that's actually the number one comment about this card.
Yeah.
Is that she's an elf ooze wizard. She has the ability, I'll just skip to the punchline. She has tap Birthing Pod. So whereas Birthing Pod took 1 and a Phyrexian green and a tap to activate, she just taps to activate. She says sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature with CMC equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature CMC, put it into play, and activate only as a sorcery. So she is literally having a Birthing Pod in your command zone, and that's super busted. I think that's super busted.
Pretty solid.
Yeah. So the first thing that came to mind, if you want to go straight to the punch, I know that Johnny's can brew this, Timmy's can brew this, but I think this is kind of a spike card because with Intruder Alarm in EDH, you have access to every single creature in your deck.
Yeah.
On a turn in which those two cards survive. Prime Speaker having haste. This is presumably. So I don't know, man. Like, what do you guys think?
I mean, it seems pretty degenerate. It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, you definitely have to build a line to the creatures that you want, and probably the creatures you want are like Career Hoof and what was the other one? Palancron. Stuff to kind of give you infinite mana or anything like that. I don't know. It seems like a typical Simic deck where you just try and make infinite mana and then try and draw yourself out or anything like that.
Yeah, so you can have a Labman win, you can have a Mesmeric Orb. Yeah, you can use Mesmeric Orb Labman to mill everyone out, and then you win. Yeah. We were kind of like trying to come up with some paths. We looked online a little bit to see what other people were brewing. They just said go for Hermit Druid, and we're like, okay, if you were going for Hermit Druid as your win con, then you really didn't need this commander. You had it in a million ways.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a
It's a tutor.
I mean, it's a
tutor
tutor
in the
commander.
tutor in the command zone. Yeah.
Exactly. So go for something that wins immediately.
Honestly, I feel like getting Hermit Druid with this seems almost a little bit harder, though, unless you go with the Protean Hulk way.
Yeah, Protean Hulk, or you're just running a shit ton of Mana Dorks, which I think you should anyways. You're running Llanowar, Flindhorn, Elvish Mystic, Birds of Paradise, every single one of the 1-drops you can, so that you can immediately pod those into your Hermit Druid, but also they facilitate casting Prime Speaker a turn early.
Yep.
So if Hermit Druid is the win...
You can play things like 1,000-Year Elixir to make both Prime Speaker and Hermit Druid have haste.
Yeah. Devilman in YouTube chat just said, also Thornbite Staff is insane with her. Because Thornbite staff says whenever a creature dies, untap the equipped creature. So she literally kills a creature and untaps herself. So that's another intruder alarm effectively. And there's probably a couple other, there's a couple other like just basically go infinite tutoring sets. So what do you do once you start chaining though? We kind of talked about this and we're trying to figure out a way to win the game, kill the entire pod. There is the Lab Man, which has been like the go-to for competitive EDH for a while. We were trying to come up with a way to use Palancron to win the game. And it's kind of loose because I think once you reach your 6 CMC pod, I think it needs to be Green Warden of Marasa to return some of the value that you've potted through from your graveyard back to your hand, both when it enters the battlefield and then when you pot it away. So you can effectively get 2 of the pieces that you chained through back to your hand, so that when you chain into when you pot into Palancron and untap 7 mana, and you can immediately replay those, and now you have 3 bodies on the battlefield as opposed to just a Palancron, and now you can have effectively up to 3 of any creature in your deck at once, and I think that should win the game, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the other solution, which would be kind of hilarious, why you wouldn't just go for Hermit Druid, is you could go up to Protean Hulk, then sack that, get 3 lower costing creatures, and then go for like Deadeye, Palancron, and Venser Lockout. That's also another option.
Yeah.
That all rides into Protean Hulk needs to be in your deck for this deck. Yeah,
I mean, Protean Hulk is definitely going to be in this deck because it works so well with her. I mean, you get to tutor up 3+ things now when Protean Hulk dies. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you Protean Hulk? What do you sack Protean Hulk for? Isn't Protean Hulk 7 mana? What do you go get with Protean Hulk? Is it always Craterhoof? The guys in chat were mentioning that Jumbo Commander did one, and I did take a look at that, and it looked like he went with a get as many Craterhoofs into play as you can.
Right.
So he would pod his Protean Hulk into Craterhoof, and then with Protean Hulk's trigger, he would go get
Phantasmal Image.
Bramblewood Mystic, I think it's called, the one that like whenever a creature comes into play, you can pay 2 to clone it. And then Renegade Doppelganger, and then that would allow him to have 4 Craterhoofs in play, something like that. But that only kills. My problem is that only kills 1 player. That doesn't kill the entire pod. So we were looking for a way to kill the entire pod. So I think the Palancron method, going Green Warden to Palancron and returning like Ewit and some of the other cards that you chain through, and then continually chaining them into 2 other cards, you know, like you said, Deadeye, Palancron, and Venser to bounce other lands, is probably the one that you can prove to people that you have in your deck, and then they'll all scoop once you've assembled Prime Speaker and Intruder Alarm.
Right.
Of course, that's only if you're trying not to do Hermit Druid, that Lapman combo.
Yep. I mean, Hermit Druid is actually, it's kind of difficult. Like, it's expensive, I should say. I know we've been leaning a little bit more towards budget recently, so having 0 basics in your deck is, and then on top of that, having 0 base in your deck is a little hard on your monetary, you know, on your money, on your wallet. But then also having ramp that doesn't hit basics also is kind of expensive too. So you can't have, you know, your rampant growth, your Kadamas and your cultivates and stuff like that anymore. So I think there's a Prime Speaker that's going to be very strong competitively when you have a lot of money. but I think it's going to look a lot different when you don't have money. It's going to have a really different win condition, I think.
Or
Right.
even just slightly different, but less streamlined or less straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. So, well, what do you guys think? I think this is a pretty spike-y commander. We didn't really even talk about Timmy ways to brew it because it just feels like whatever you do that isn't that is going to be suboptimal and a waste of time.
I kind of agree with that. And it's just too hard.
I don't know, Johnny. Do you want to do Ooze Tribal? Is this your Ooze commander that you're
No,
your
it's not.
Hey, you can sack Mitotic Druid, which will make 2 tokens, and then
Mitotic
go
Ooze, yeah.
or Mitotic Ooze to go get a 6-drop. I think.
I would
I
just
don't
like
know.
to say I
whatever.
think this might be a better elf commander than we've seen for some of the other ones. For Simic.
Really, you think so?
Elves.
Systemic. Oh yeah, because I think most of the other ones were lords or just draw engines.
Yeah, I
Was
mean,
Rashmi an elf?
I don't know.
I don't think she was. Thank God.
I mean, I think, like,
I think she was a human.
look, elves have mono green, and I would say.
Oh, Rashmi was. Sorry.
Oh, Rashmi was an elf?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got Rashmi, you've got Nath in Golgari, and then, there's plenty of great options in mono green. I don't think this is dethroning anything. I think this becomes its own deck. And the sweet spot of what exactly those cards are that you get to actually win. I don't know exactly what all the pieces are. I think we've listed most of them out. So like knowing that line and then also knowing like what the lines are to solve your problems. Getting a Rex Sage or getting a whatever it is that you need to just save your butt. A Haze Frog. It's a horrible card, but you know what I mean.
Everest in chat's got a chain that goes Peregrine Drake into Deadeye, binding with Vannifar, flickering Vannifar, then potting a Fate Stitcher into a body double, copying Peregrine, flickering Deadeye, and now you have basically infinite body double triggers. Which is actually really cool because that allows every creature you've potted through to be accessible even while in your graveyard.
Right.
That's pretty funny. Toolboxes everywhere, man. Toolboxes in your deck, in your freaking graveyard.
Right. So basically, there's a whole bunch of copy cards, and there's a whole bunch of untapped stuff cards. And then, Thornbite Staff and Intruder Alarm. And I think you just end up getting there.
Yeah, so the one saving grace is... actually, I'm not really sure about... I think Blue may have some ways to go tutor up artifacts. He did. Chat did mention that you can muddle the mixture or transmute for Thornbite, but other than that, it is actually a little bit difficult to go get either Intruder Alarm or Thornbite Staff in Simic.
You can fabricate, right?
Yeah, fabricate at 3 mana, which is pretty solid for Thornbite. You can, like he said, you can muddle mixture transmute for Thornbite. Whereas green doesn't really have a whole lot tutoring either of those things, since tutoring enchantments is white, and artifacts is white-blue.
Yeah. I think you just go hard card draw for the other pieces.
Yeah. So as powerful as we're making it out to be, you kind of have to have one of those extremely synergistic combo pieces in your starting hand. Otherwise, it's going to take a little bit. It's going to turtle a lot.
I think that's why people are going with the Hermit Druid and Labman kind of thing, because you need those 2 cards, which you can pod for fairly easily.
Yeah.
And because they're both creatures. You're not depending on an enchantment or an artifact.
Yeah, and it keeps the CMC of your deck extremely low.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say that's probably going to be a competitive version that is obviously Hermit Druid centric, and the fun version may be a lot more hit or miss than we're giving it credit for.
Sure.
I was talking to Zach earlier about building this, and you can do a kind of going away from just focusing on the chains of your pods. You can go into a Paradox Engine deck so you have a lot of mana dorks, which are the basis of most of your chains, but also you have your Paradox Engine that allows you to untap all kinds of creatures. So while you're trying to dig for these things, you're still having a lot of action being generated
Right.
from your Paradox engine, untapping your creatures, and you're basically being able to play 2 or 3 turns for every turn you're playing, since you're untapping all your mana dorks every time. So that could accelerate, if you don't have tutors, a way to dig a little bit deeper and get to your stuff quicker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go with. Oh yeah, there's also Trophy Mage. They said, which is perfect because Trophy Mage is a creature, and Trinket Mage too. So yeah, you can get through those. Those are great cards to pod through. I love it when you get a card in your hand while podding. All right, off of Vannifar, in stores now. On to Rakdos, the Showstopper.
God, this card's bad.
Are you guys excited? Are you
Oh,
guys excited? This is actually the first one I'm building.
I love
Sorry.
reminiscing.
The only reason I'm building this card, I'm going to start reading this card at its flavor text. 2 simple words. Entertain me. That's so bad. That's so badass. I wanted to build him just when I saw his flavor text.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right.
it's a sweet like concept. It's
Yeah,
just not
yeah.
good.
It's not real
Okay,
life.
so Rakdos the Showstopper is a 6-mana 6/6 demon. Big surprise there. He costs 4 and a Rakdos. He's a flying trampler. He has, when Rakdos enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. Destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. I actually like how they identified which face of the coin results, so no one has to choose. Because they were like, for each of them, choose heads or tails. And it's like, well, there's 13 creatures. Now I have to choose heads or tails 13 times. They're like, no. It's just tails. Tails is dead.
I'm gonna choose heads, tails, heads, tails, tails.
Wait, was that
No,
heads or tails?
The biggest
Fuck.
problem with this is now you actually have to have a coin. You can't just be like roll a die.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you
yeah.
can.
Just be
Like,
okay, tails is odds going forward.
yeah, I mean, it means 50-50 chance. That's all it means.
Yeah. But so I did the due diligence because I started trying to brew this guy. There are no good imps or devils. Let's just put that out there. I looked. The best imp in the world is still Stinkweed. And I couldn't tell you what the best devil was. My eyes glazed over as I looked through.
Farmbreaker Devils.
Was it Sin Prodder is probably the best devil. Okay, so there's a couple ways that I worked on brewing this, and I see Matt and chat's already on the gun here. It's coin flip tribal. So so you're trying to win with chance encounter. If you win 10 coin flips, you win the game. You can effectively do that with 1 Rakdos to Showstopper cast.
Yeah, I mean, that's not untrue.
If you're super lucky, or there's just an enormous board state. So that's kind of where I started going with my first path. I was like, okay, what if I mill everyone, and then I somehow get Rakdos to Showstopper in my graveyard, chance encounter in play, and then I living death. And then that puts all like 1 billion creatures into play, but then Rakdos blows up enough for chance encounter to win the game. That is one way to build it. It's loose AF.
Well, so what if you... Oh, God. I want to say Tombstone Stairwell?
I don't know what that card does. Please enlighten me.
I think it basically forces everybody else to have creatures.
Okay, so
Give me a second.
Tombstone Stairwell has a cumulative upkeep of a black and a colorless. During each upkeep, each player puts into play a tombstone or tomb spawn token for each summon card in his or her graveyard. Treat those tokens as 2/2 black creatures that are unaffected by summoning sickness and count as zombies. At end of any turn, or if Tombstone Stairwell leaves play, bury all of these tokens.
That's at the end of every turn they die. Damn it. Because I was trying to figure out a way that we can give a whole bunch of creatures to everybody.
Just blow 'em up.
Okay, so this is where it's led me, and I kind of told you guys a little bit about it because I have been. Unfortunately, this is the one I've been working on the hardest. I don't know why. Let me mention one thing real quick as an aside, which shower thought occurred to me yesterday. I was thinking about when I tried to build Rakdos Lord of Riots. For for our obscure tribal league, and I picked demons as my obscure tribe way back before demons actually got like good support. It occurs to me that the Rakdos Lord of Riots, which is the one from Return to Ravnica, was Spectacle on a commander. For every damage dealt to an opponent, your creatures cost 1 less when Rakdos Lord of Riots was out.
Right.
So they used his, like, it felt like the shit got mixed up somehow. And Rakdos Lord of Riots should have been in this set, and Showstopper could have been thrown in the trash. I don't care. But Rakdos Lord of Riots should have been in this set. Spectacle's about dealing damage before casting your spells, and Lord of Riot was the same. Anyways, that's just an aside. It ticked me off. But so like you said, we want to get creatures into play. We want creatures to be constantly dying, effectively, or being available for Rakdos to Showstopper, which is what led me down the crazy fucking path to Lifeline, which I told you about.
Yeah.
So let me read you Lifeline real quick. Lifeline is a 5-mana artifact that says, whenever creature is put into the graveyard and a creature is still in play, which of course Rakdos will never kill himself or any other demons, imps, or devils. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is still in play, return that creature from that player's graveyard to play at the end of turn. So while creatures still die, they come back in the end step every single turn. And so what I was like, okay, well, you can get like almost an infinite number of coin flips. Not really infinite. It's going to be like, you know, the number of creatures in play divided by 2 is your number of successful coin flips. But even though you blow up creatures, they come back to be blown up again and over and over and over. So if there's, say, 10 creatures in play and you have Lifeline in play and you cast Rakdos and it blows up 5 of them, it puts those 5 back into play. Now, if you sacrifice Rakdos at the same time, Rakdos also comes back into play. So now, when they all come back into play, Rakdos triggers again, blows up another 5, set them aside, wait till the next turn, the next end step, put them back into play at that end step, blow up 5 more, put them in the graveyard, etc. So by the time it reaches back to your turn, your chance encounter probably is going to have like many counters.
So
This is a stupid idea, but this is the best I could come up with.
Thing to do, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe this isn't Timmy at all.
I shipped you the idea. I was like, hey, this is what I came up with. This is so ridiculous. If any of those things are like chupacabras, if any of those things do anything relevant on, you're constantly getting ETB triggers at every single end step.
Yeah. Maybe.
And those creatures, while they do trigger their ETBs, are then blown up and basically removed from the game until the next end step. Right. So those creatures can't ever attack or be used by their owners or anything. Right.
So here was my thought is like, because I like that's cool, but like you're talking about 3 cards in a deck, so like obviously we have room to do some other shenanigans in there. So if you play things like Curse of Disturbance, I think there's another curse that makes zombies also. Goblin Spy Master and Infernal Genesis. Zach, if you'll bring that one up, because that's the one that I want to highlight here.
Never heard of it. Making up cards again.
Exactly. Infernal Genesis is 4 black for an enchantment that says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. He or she then puts X 1/1 black minion creature tokens into play, where X is that card's converted mana cost. So you're instantly giving everybody a whole bunch of 1/1 minion tokens, as long as there's not a land on top of their deck. And then you cast Rakdos. Hopefully there's 20 1/1 creatures out on the battlefield, and if you win 50%, you win the game. You know?
Here's my problem: is while you don't have chance encounter in play, you are absolutely accelerating the shit out of your opponents. You're helping them destroy.
I don't know what you're talking about. I only see what happens in my bubble. I don't understand what's happening outside of it.
Okay. Beyond trying to actually win with chance encounter, which you don't necessarily have to do, in the scenario I highlighted, you can also have a Gary is one of the ones that keeps getting flickered back and forth. So that'll eventually kill people. And you can have Judith in your deck or something. There are some other ways to brew this. Obviously, there is using a Cohen and the other Battle Bond guy who doubles his power every time you win a coin flip
I think you can only use the red one because the other one's blue.
Yeah. Yeah, Cohen's the red ogre one.
Yeah.
He says at the beginning of combat, your turn to flip a coin until you lose a flip, and then it has a separate clause that says whenever a player wins a coin flip. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So no matter what happens, somebody wins a coin flip, right?
Yeah.
No.
Wait, how does that work?
No.
Wow, oh, that's weird.
Oh, I don't know.
When one player loses a coin flip, does that not mean the other player won that coin flip?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
not-
I'm going to have to read the Oracle text
Yeah.
of this card. Chat, let me know if I'm completely off base here. But whenever a player wins a coin flip, double his power and toughness until end of turn.
Right. You've also got things like Karplusa Minotaur, right? That's the coin flip cumulative upkeep one.
Yep. You don't have the Efreet that you can trigger infinitely. But if you're just doing coin flip tribal, you can have fun with that. It's not going to be a powerful deck, but it'll be fun. I got to tell you, banking on a 6-mana commander who is a bad Malfagor. Like Malfagor, this guy also is reminiscent of Malfagor in that he board wipes when he enters the battlefield. But Malfagor costs you your hand. You must discard your hand, and then opponents sack a creature for each card you discarded. This one does not consistently blow things up. So I don't know if you want to build around that. It'll be fun, but it won't be good, I would have to say.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And the last way you'd build this would be Demon Tribal. And that's something I'm going to look at later because, of course, you have that new enchantment that allows you to win the game if you have 4 demons. This guy doesn't kill demons, so that's nice. But,
To be honest, this feels like a demon that you may put into like a Kalia deck for interesting interactions.
I mean, he could accidentally blow up the Kalia, though. Yeah. I don't think this guy is very powerful at all, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Let's check in with chat, see if they have some other idea. They're definitely up for one punch a Cohen.
One punch a Cohen, yeah.
But they agree it's pretty poopy. All right, let's move on from Rakdos. On to Teysa Karlov. This is a 4-mana.
Now we're talking.
This is right up your alley. I can tell. This is a 4-mana 2/4. She costs 2 and Orzhov. She's a human advisor. She says if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time trigger.
Yeah.
Okay. She also has another ability that says creature tokens you control have vigilance and lifelink. I like how both Judith and like Teysa, they seem to be like two halves of a really good card. Like one of them's like, I only help tokens, and the other one's like, fuck tokens, no tokens. And one's like, when stuff dies, deal damage, and one's when like stuff dies, trigger again. And then one like buffs and one gives vigilance. Like it feels like the R&D team had 2 different ideas for one card, and they made it to 2 different cards. But anyways.
I mean, I think that Teysa goes in Teysa, right? Like that's probably the best way to do this. But
wait, which Teysa goes in which Teysa? Are we talking about brewing with Ms. Karlov, or are you talking about brewing with whatever the ugly art one?
Orzhov Scion. Orzhov Scion is probably
the ugly art one. Okay.
You actually build. That said, Teysa Karlov does a lot of interesting things. I don't know that there's necessarily, because I was doing some research on this one, and I could not figure out something that was like a definitive combo that keeps going. But there's so much value to be had here. I mean, whenever something dies, so one of my cards that is that has a Skull Clamp attached to it dies, I draw 4 cards. Like that alone, okay?
Oh boy.
Skull Clamp draws 4 cards, okay?
Boy. And Blood Artist gains you 2 life. I know you were a big hype on getting life.
I mean, Massacre Worm just wins the game, right?
Yeah.
Per player?
Yeah. I was talking about how Living Death was going to show up in so many decks through this Living Death going to be in Rakdos. Living Death is going to be in here. But you reminded me, Massacre Worm. When you got your Lifeline combo online, Massacre Worm just kills everyone because their shit keeps dying and they can't stop it from dying. Anyways,
I mean, I think you could even like Enduring Renewal Yosei, and then nobody's allowed to untap anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
If you're in like a 3-person pod, you're locking down 2 people.
Yeah. I think she's definitely very strong. That death trigger is going to be hard to rate because we're not used to looking at all the cards with death triggers. We're used to looking at ETB triggers, but I think when people narrow it down, it's going to be a pretty decent list. Yeah. Like you said, the Kamigawa dragons are death triggers, so
yeah.
Yosei and Kakusho are pushed.
No. See, this is exactly the problem I got into. No, neither of those work.
Why is that?
Okay, so this was something that I came to when I finally read this card over again, and I was like, okay, if a creature dying causes a trigger ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time.
So yes, you're right. They don't trigger themselves because they're not permanent once they've died.
So things like Black Market, things like your Skull Clamp, like we mentioned, anything, or your Blood Artists, things like that, those totally work. But if you're Massacre Worm still works, Demon of Dark Scheme still works, but you can't depend on the die trigger of a creature. You have to have another permanent.
You are absolutely right. I'm glad you got that out there. I have not heard that yet, but you're absolutely right. So, yeah.
So that's what hampers it a little bit because you can't just take Kakusho and just like I'm gonna sack this, reanimate it, sack this, reanimate it.
Okay, so that's very helpful because now we know what we're working with because we're used to seeing things that trigger off of deaths.
Right.
So this is going to be a Blood Artist deck. This is going to be a Zilliport Cutthroat deck. It's going to be something along those lines.
Yeah, people. A lot of people had like Alenda, the Dusk Rose, which I don't think is particularly good, but like
makes extra bodies now.
It does make extra bodies, yeah, and they're tokens, so they get vigilance. They already have lifelink, I think. But it gets her extra big. There's a lot of things that trigger off of death. Obviously in black, not as much in white. But
man, let's talk about Alenda real quick. I didn't realize that was a death trigger, so you had to put her in your graveyard. What were they thinking?
Yeah, I know.
What were they thinking when they made Alenda? You have to put her in your graveyard. Did they just forget about EDH for a little while? Like, let's make a legendary that's not for EDH. Oh, fucking got him. But Alenda, whenever she dies, create X 1/1 vampire creature token with a lifelink where X was Alenda's power. Yeah.
Right, but that's not the part that you get to double. You get to double the amount of counters that are put on her, right?
You're absolutely right. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Alenda. So yeah, she gets doubly swole, doubly fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's step back a little bit and say which Teysa, best Teysa.
I mean, best Teysa Orzhov Scion.
Right. This one is not going to do anything that other one couldn't do. It does something unique. It creates a Panharmonicon for death triggers, and that's kind of a new way to build EDH.
Yeah.
But it's actually... I'm sorry, it's not a new way to build EDH. We've seen that deck. We've seen that deck many times in EDH. I had an Athreos one. We all had like a sack-centric deck that just cycled things constantly, and she now boosts that by doubling it. But okay, so the deck wins slightly faster, or this is more of a win more card. So do you think this is going to make waves? Are you excited for this?
I'm excited for this because I have a Teysa deck, and it basically doubles everything that Teysa does. Whenever another black creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 spirit. So now you get 2. So it's basically like a parallel live specifically for Teysa.
Oh yeah. I mean, like an anointed procession, effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
But as a commander, do you see
as a commander
doing something you've never seen before or excited to do?
I am very excited that it does something that I've never seen before because I love when that happens. Panharmonicon was probably like my favorite card that was printed in the last few years, but I don't know how this deck is yet. I really don't. Like I need to make it happen, and I haven't put together all the pieces that make it happen. It feels like just a value engine right now, which isn't that great.
Yeah, I mean, she seems like a Teysa Orzhov Scion light.
Yeah.
Like, because that one is kind of known for having infinite loops. Whereas this one won't. This one is definitely like a Timmier take on it, where it's like, I don't want to go infinite. I'm just going to get enough triggers to eventually kill you. And this, by doubling triggers, definitely goes that far.
Yeah, you're just basically looking for anything that says whenever a creature dies, X happens. Yeah. And put that enchantment out and then make it happen. Start blowing stuff up.
Everest in chat is hyped for a doubling Galvanic Juggernaut, which I had to look that up. That says it does not untap on your untap step, but whenever another creature dies, untap Galvanic Juggernaut. So now you have 2 untapped triggers. So if you have a Viridian Crossbow on this thing, you're gonna do some work. Or Viridian Longbow, whatever it is. I don't know. It's something that allows it to tap to do something. Paradise Mantle, you got yourself a bit of a rue going.
Yeah.
Intense combo.
He also asked if Teysa ruins Liliana Heretical Healer. I don't know. I don't know if it does. I don't usually run Liliana Heretical Healer in EDH as much as I should, probably. I know you do.
What do you mean does it ruin it?
Yeah. I don't know. So Heretical Healer, whenever a creature dies, flip twice. I think he's worried, is it flip and then flip itself back to its front side?
I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, I think once flipped, it can't be flipped back.
Only because it ceases to be the object that it was trying to flip before.
So you have a second flip trigger on the stack. So if someone stifles the first flip trigger, that second one's getting through.
Ooh, that hot tech.
Yeah. Pushed.
So loose.
Pushed. All right. So you're liking this one, though, Adam? You're thinking about brewing this one?
I mean, I at least like it from the originality perspective. I don't know. I just dropped a whole bunch of crap. Anyway.
They weren't magic cards, were they? They weren't a deck. They weren't sorted alphabetically.
Yeah, they're like.
We can stop the stream for you to fix that.
They're like old gift cards or something. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's not great as of yet. I have to futz with it for a while. I mean, maybe there's something in there that I'm not seeing that final piece yet, but I want to look for it because I want this to happen. I just don't know how.
I don't know. Personally, for me, the most interesting part about this is it gives vigilance and lifelink. That's bad to creature tokens.
So you're gonna be like Worm Coil Engine deck. I feel like that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna recur Worm Coil and sack it as many times as you can.
I feel like it does that much, to be honest.
I hear ya. It seems like a ancillary enchantment in a deck. It's an anointed possession and a intangible virtue.
But maybe not. Maybe something.
Oh, challenge accepted. All right, let's move on.
Yep.
This is the last one, isn't it? This is Zegana, Utopian Speak.
Oh God.
The most powerful and new game-breaking ability, Adapt. Anyways, Zegana Utopian Speaker is a 4-mana 4/4. It's 2 and a Simic for a 4/4 that is a Merfolk Wizard, and it says whenever Zegana Utopian Speaker enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card.
Right. So is this telling me that Prime Speaker draws a card now? Like a single card?
Yeah, do you remember all those times somebody cast Prime Speaker and you blew them out by blowing up like all their creatures and it came into play and they drew 1 and it was the saddest day. They're like, oh man.
Now they only always draw 1.
Now that's the top. That's the max it can do now. That is not the floor, it's the ceiling. That's the limit that this card can do.
This card is bad.
But it costs 2 less, so, sacrificing the potential to have drawn 8+ cards is good for 2 mana less, right?
So here's the only thing that I'll say good about this card. The last ability has been
control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample.
Right. Has been printed on things before. I think there's at least 3 or 4 versions of that. And they do see some play in +1/+1 counter matters decks.
For sure.
With that said, this basically just replaces them in some of those decks and draws you a card probably, and that is 100% the ceiling for this card. it might become an 8/8 if you pay 10 mana.
Yes, the other ability that we haven't mentioned yet is it has a 6 mana activated Adapt 4, which says if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. And now it is notable that usually most lords do not buff themselves. They say other creatures, but once again, they decided to make exceptions to their own rules. This one says each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter has trample. So she does give herself trample once she adapts. I'm sorry. I had to read the asterisks and fine print on this card. Continue dumping all over Zegana.
Card is garbage.
Well, the Prime Speaker is much better.
Yeah, speaking as a Prime Speaker Zegana player, Zach, can you see any upside here to build around that is a different way to take it that Zegana, the other Zegana, would not have gone?
A different strategy for sure. But it's not. Yeah, it's not good.
A bad one.
I would say she's probably better than 99 in other decks, like Azuri. Yeah.
Yeah, Azuri Claw of Progress.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Azuri is the king of +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
And so she tries to encroach in that territory, but I don't see herself ever usurping him as commander.
I would say this might be one of the worst Simic commanders ever.
Yeah.
It is definitely the most medium. Yeah, I can't speak highly of it. Even Rajmi can draw you multiple cards if it survives. This threatens to kill with commander damage. Was this a Simic Voltron commander? Adam, to you. Answer my question.
Was what a Simic Voltron commander?
This can become an 8/8 with trample. It's a 4 mana that can become an 8/8 with trample. Is this Simic's Voltron commander?
Absolutely.
No.
Well,
okay, great,
hold
excellent feedback. Good take.
No, I mean Prime Speaker Zegana usually
let's
gets
go back to Azuri.
bigger than that.
I mean, he himself can. Okay, never mind. Never mind. He can't
Pump himself.
Target creature. I'm reading the card now.
He has to do others, right?
But
yes. You want to read Azuri because he is the king of +1/+1
whenever a
counters.
creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. This card will definitely not beat that, and it's definitely not a Voltron commander in my opinion. Because as Adam said, the other Prime Speaker is significantly better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chat does mention that she does work with Deadeye Navigator, but
so much
Zegana
better. Are you kidding me?
Drew out your deck when Deadeye was out. Okay, so maybe if you don't have Eldrazi and you're afraid you're going to mill yourself out, you should be running draw 1 instead of draw 7. Yeah? All right, we got ourselves some upside here.
I am currently looking at all of the Simic commanders, and I cannot tell you one that I find to be worse, except for maybe Tishana.
Hey, whoa, Tishana wasn't terrible. Oh, you're talking about Simic commanders? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Also, Mateus says, still better than most Boros commanders, and that is sadly true.
I would say still better than 90% of Boros commanders. You've got Brian Stoutarm, end of story.
Oh, man. That hurts so hard. That cuts so deep. Anyways. Okay, so realistically speaking, she is a fine commander. She's not excellent. She's not terrible. She does require you to build a +1/+1 counter-centric deck. And ignore Azuri Claw of Progress for some reason. Act like Azuri was never made.
Hold on.
Maybe your group has a ban on Azuri because you just
even
like.
just Azuri. You're also missing Oral of the Hulk lad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Experiment Craj.
All the good +1/+1 commanders in Simic.
Yeah. But yeah, if you ignore all the good cards, then this is a fine commander.
I don't see it, I guess. She's a 4-mana 4/4, so she comes out early. She's easy to get out on turn 3, turn 2 maybe, with a hard ramp.
I would rather
She
play
can trample.
Rick Smithies.
Oh, Rick Smithies was spectacularly bad, but at least the Rick Smithies was exciting.
Yes, I would rather play a Rick Smithies.
All right, so I think like.
So how do you build it? You build. I mean, honestly, I think this is a decent budget command. Like I don't ever think this is going to be worth anything. So I think this is a fine +1/+1 counter budget commander. You know, it's going to go with all of your little dudes that just put extra +1/+1 counters on things and spells like Thrive and stuff that don't cost all that much money. That you can just hopefully, you know, build a big enough, you know, Timmy army to take them down with a little bit of draw put on it.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, the best thing you can say about Zegana is that she's a great placeholder.
Yeah.
Like, because Azorius is $12, so this will probably not break 5 unless it's standard playable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, in that that in some of its worst builds could be a Hydra tribal commander,
Right.
and this one kind of reads that way too. It can give some of the Hydras that don't have trample, and it draws you cards consistently when it comes
Right.
out. And it is sort of its own Hydra in a way. But then you just want to get Selvala Heart of the Wild eventually, because that
Hydras
comes
are in blue and green. Like the good Hydras are in red and green though.
In green, there's plenty. I mean, most of them are mono green.
Yeah, most of the best ones I think are mono green. Red gives you some really weird ones like Apocalypse Hydra and stuff like that. However, there is I couldn't find it. I thought I found it. There is a X for a X and a green and a blue for a flying.
Oh
Hydra.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hydra.
Oh, there's a new one. There's a Hydroid Crassus. The new mythic.
Really?
It's X, a green, and a blue. When you cast this spell, you gain half X life and draw half X cards. It has flying and trample, and it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters.
We found it. We found the reason to play Zegana because
Except for this already has trample, so who cares?
Oh, why would they do that? Oh, I like this card. I used to try and play Lifeblood Hydra, which is X and triple green, but it does all those things when it dies.
Yeah.
This gets it when you cast a spell, which means even if they counter it, you still get to gain half of X life and draw half of X cards. This card's
I didn't even realize that
not
was
awful.
Cast. I thought it was an ETB.
No.
But yeah, that.
It's also a flying trample. This card's actually like a pretty soft, casual win condition.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
interesting.
Good call. I totally forgot there's other cards that have been printed or revealed. Anyways, so guys, what do you think? Zegana, probably
not,
no one wants to play that.
You just play Simic Ascendancy and have fun.
Which means we'll probably make the Spike play it, and he can just use it as a placeholder, and then build like a Protean Hulk, Flash Hulk deck underneath it. All right, Adam, as a Johnny, what is your favorite card, and what are you building for the next gameplay?
My favorite card of the legendaries?
Yeah, which commander are you building?
Teysa.
All right, Mr. Spike Zach, what are you building for the next gameplay? Any idea yet?
Speaker. I'm not happy about it.
All right. I will be building Rakdos Showstopper. So,
All right.
Guys, stay tuned. Be sure to like and subscribe and to get notifications when that gameplay comes out. We probably know who's going to win that one. It's going to be Adam because he's going to pack every card that says things that ETB do not trigger. Or was the other? Doesn't let them search deep.
It's going to be a good time. No big deal.
Yeah.
But
all right, guys.
People can't flip coins.
Oh, daggers. You know I'm going to have my Krark's Thumb ready. My full Krark's Thumb. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. I hope this gave you guys some ideas. I think you guys gave us some ideas, too.
Yeah.
So we're going to run with those and hopefully build some cool decks for y'all to see. All right, guys. We will see you next time.